Woodsong by Gary Pualsen, Chapter 5. We burn wood to heat the house, and we have a wood-burning, old-time kitchen stove. There's probably nothing that makes me feel quite as warm as coming in on a cold winter morning, leaning over the kitchen stove to warm my hands, and smelling rich pine wood smoke and fresh bread baking in the oven. The cats love the wood stove too. They spend most of the winter either pressed against the side of it or sleeping beneath it. We had a neighbor, an old bachelor, who let the chickens into his house. They would roost on the stove each night to stay warm as the fire died down. It made an unholy mess. Chickens cannot be housebroken, and when he fired the stove up and cooked the chicken stuff, the smell would drive you out, but he seemed to like it, and the chickens provided company for him. We don't let the animals in except for house dogs. We have 3 loose little terrier kind of things, and of course the cats. But the chickens have discovered that the chimney conducts heat as well as smoke out of the house. It's usual in the winter to go out in the morning and see chickens on the roof flocked around the chimney warming themselves. They have a perfectly good insulated coop, but we have let them run because it makes the eggs taste better and they prefer the chimney to the coop. One of them is a banty hen we call Hawk, and since she is at least partially a creature of the woods, it might be proper to tell about her here. Banties, my wife says, are mean small chickens you can never get rid of. They can indeed be mean, but they are wonderfully self-sufficient and fun to have around, even if it takes about 30 of their small eggs to make a decent omelet. They are forever setting on nests, hatching out chicks, brooding and clucking and attacking anything that comes close. Mother love takes on a whole new meaning when you cross a banty hen taking care of 15 or 20 chicks. I have seen grown men run when they get attacked by this small chicken. I was running a team in the late spring. We pull a wheeled cart with a platform on the back, rather like a sled with wheels, when there is no snow. We were on a country road near thick forest when we came on a dead ruffed grouse. She probably got hit by a car while gathering gravel for her gizzard. Grouse come out to the road each evening and get stones to help grind up the seeds and berries they eat and are frequently hit by cars. The dogs had her in an instant before I could stop them, and she was gone, feathers floating in the air. As we started on our way, I happened to glance into the low brush and saw her nest. I tied the dogs off so they wouldn't run. Again, I had some pups in the team, and they were insane, especially after finding the grouse. And I went to the nest. There were 14 eggs cuddled in a soft grass and leaves. They looked so forlorn that I picked them up and carried them in my cap rather than leaving them there for some passing skunk. I'm not sure what I expected to do with them. My wife is an artist, and I thought perhaps she might want them for a still life, but when I got home with the dogs, the eggs somehow, unbroken, cradled in my pack, bouncing on the rig. I saw Hawk sitting on her clutch of eggs. So I popped the grouse eggs under her. She pecked my hand bloody for the effort, just to see what would happen. My wife later said that I unleashed a summer of terror on us when I put the eggs under Hawk. The eggs hatched out. Every single grouse egg, along with her own 10 eggs, hatched out, and she adopted them, the baby grouse. And there isn't anything cuter than a grouse chick, bonded with Hawk, and thought she was their mother. Within days of hatching, she had the whole brood coursing the yard, looking for bugs or bits of grain that we threw to them. If they saw a grasshopper, the whole mob would take after it. Hawk was a protective mother, and the chicks, both grouse and chicken, grew fast and well. That's when things got out of hand. The grouse chicks didn't know they were supposed to be chickens. Except for short distances, banty chickens can't fly well because they have been bred to be too heavy for their wings. But the grouse rapidly grew into adolescence with good wing feathers, and they were soon flying all over the yard, whipping from tree to tree or up to the roof. Hawk would watch them and call to them, and at first they came, gathering under her wings for protection. Even when they were so large, they would lift her up off the ground when they all piled under her. When the grouse chicks grew enough to ignore Hawk, it made her furious to lose control. The young grouse flew away from her up into the trees, even when she ordered them to come back to her, and her anger made her fluff up and stomp around. She took it out on all of us. Next to the house was the wood pile. It was as high as the roof of the house. We use wood for cooking and heating, so it becomes a major pile. and Hawk took to sitting on top of the woodpile, watching the yard and her chicks to protect them no matter how far they ranged. Nothing dare moved in the yard. The first time I noticed this was when Russell, our fat old tomcat, was goobering around the yard. He made the mistake of crouching and pretending to stalk one of the chicks. The frightened chick made one small, distressed peep, and that's all it took. I was standing in the driveway, facing the woodpile, and saw Hawk launch herself like a speckled red missile. She hit Russell in the back of the head so hard, cat hair flew out in a circle. Then she hung on and rode him out of the yard, raking his sides like a professional bull rider. The first attack opened the door for her, and she began to rule the yard with an iron hand from the top of the woodpile. She watched like a hawk, hence her name, and woe unto anybody or anything that stepped too close to her chicks. Since as the chicks grew, they scattered all over the place, and since there were over 20 of them, it was impossible to not be near one of her chicks. The yard became a war zone. Images. My wife carrying laundry to the line and going to her knees as Hawk catches her in the back of the head, Hawk flying off to the right, clutching a pair of shorts in her claws. Quincy, our smallest terrier, keeping a low profile as he tries to sneak across the yard and get to the relative safety of the lilacs near the driveway. Quincy flopping end over end as Hawk nails him in the back of the head like a feathered cannonball. My son, 6'2", coming back from the mailbox with an armload of mail, getting smashed full in the face just as he steps over the battery-powered electric fence we use to keep the goats out of the yard. Paper and envelopes flying through the air as his legs hit the wires. Fred, our obese half-lab yard dog, crouching down with all his hair up and very many teeth showing, facing Hawk, who has her neck feathers ruffled out and her beak down as they get ready for head-to-head battle. Hawk winning. A fox drawn by the meat smell from the kennel, but pulled into the yard by the chicks. The fox grabbing a chick and getting hit so hard by Hawk, coming from the top of the woodpile, that I could see spit fly as the chick was blown out of his mouth. And finally, my wife coming into the house, tomatoes she'd been carrying from the garden crushed all over her shirt, her hair a mess around the bicycle helmet she started to wear for protection around the yard, and anger in her eye. "The hawk," she said, grabbing a towel, wiping herself off, "strikes again." The grouse grew up, and most of them went back to the wild. As they left, Hawk mellowed, but the people and animals who lived through the episode still tiptoe around the yard when Hawk is sitting on the woodpile.